I cannot begin to describe how surreal it is for me to be sitting here with the man, the myth, the legend, the Reverend Dan Wilson. How you
Oh, you're
doing,
too
dude?
kind.
Dude, I'm like underselling you. So, uh, we were just talking about how I did my interview with Jaden. I've been retweeting, reposting, and liking every fucking thing you guys are doing up there in Chattanooga and the outlying areas. And I talked to Jaden. I was like, man, I want to talk to all y'all down there. I love it. I love it. And he's like, yeah, I get Darian who and who, and he's like, oh, and like Rev. And I was like, really? Like, and he's like, dude, just ask him, which is the classic line that actually got the guy that I did an interview with last night, Connor Hopkins, into getting managed by Jim Fannin, his hero, which is hilarious. And yeah, it's amazing. It's almost like, Dan, that y'all get a bad rap, the old school group, for being mean and curmudgeony, and maybe just if you show some respect, you get far in this world. What a thought.
Yeah, I try not to be too mean or curmudgeon these days. I don't really have, I mean, beyond like when the bell rings, obviously. Now that's where we enjoy that. But
Yeah.
outside of the ring, I'm pretty chill. Like, I don't, I have a reputation and I might have gone off on a motherfucker or two in the locker room before, but I'm trying to be kinder and gentler.
Yes, sir. And first off, I figure, so my whole thing about doing these is I'm not here to fucking ask you like what's your first memory as a wrestling fan. Like, that's cool, right? But like, I feel like that is so just skimming the surface, right? I'm here for the weird shit. So, when it comes to you, there to me is three things that really just hit home. You love the old school pro wrestling, it's in your blood. Then there's horror, clearly, right? Like with your look and everything else. But then many people maybe don't understand what the look as well, comes metal music and that whole vibe as well. And I just wondered, what came first with you? Was it pro wrestling or was it metal?
Fuck, probably metal, but they were neck and neck as far as being like introduced into my life. Right around the same time, I had uncles, like my mom's brothers were all in bands and big metal heads, and so I got to hear Kiss and Motley Crue and Ozzy at a very young age, and I really fell in love with that shit immediately, and have been in love with it my entire life. And then wrestling came not long after that. I was a child of the 80s, so I grew up in the Hulkamania era and the rock and wrestling, and
Oh
when
yeah.
wrestling was the biggest shit in the world. And I had an uncle in the business, which is kind of what fascinated me into like even wanting to check it out in the first place when I was a kid. And then I saw it on TV and I was like, oh, that's what Epi is, what we called Gypsy Joe then. That's what he does. Okay, this is fucking
Yeah.
cool. But as far as doing it, it was definitely metal because I was in bands like starting at like 14, 15, playing our high school talent shows, and then doing some local gigs and even some regional gigs. But then I got into wrestling pretty fucking young. Like, I got into
Yeah.
wrestling at around 18, 19 years old. It was like springtime of 99. I did my first show, and then not long after that I started doing more regular shows. But the first show was like this fucking parking lot deal in a nursing home that I just showed up to watch, and it was pretty low rent southern indie show, and had a bunch of
Yeah.
guys who claimed to at one point work for WCW that I had never seen, and I had seen a shitload of WCW because that was my wrestling. That was what I
Oh, we'll
liked.
get all into that, brother. I do a WCW podcast, man.
Fuck yeah.
So yeah.
Um, and the most fond memory I have from that show, so the ring announcer didn't show up, and I just overheard them scrambling for someone. And of course, I'd done backyard wrestling with my friends, and I ring announced it and commentated over all the fucking tapes. So I was like, "Hey, I can do it." And again, why don't you just ask, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey, I can do that if you want." They're like, "Sure." And so the whole soundtrack, every wrestler on the show came out to a select track from the legendary AC/DC Live at Donington album.
Hell yeah.
And it was the only music we had, and it was on a boombox, and I put a microphone up to the boombox. So that was my luxurious and glamorous entry into the world of wrestling.
Isn't it so funny? Like when you're, you know, I'm 37, so I'm not like old, but I remember those days, right? Like I was very cognizant in 99, and it's really funny to think about like we used to think like, man, 2000, how in the future this is, and 99, like the Prince song, like holy shit, man, what an omen. And then now we're like, God, dude, what a small, shitty world. You know what I mean? We had no idea. And then obviously there's parts of that that like you miss.
Oh, there's a lot of it I miss. I feel
Me
like
too,
99, 2000 were like the
dude.
last great years before everything kind of
Yep.
started slowly going downhill. And God, the last few years, so a lot going downhill. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty nostalgic for that time, even if, I decided I wanted to be a wrestling announcer, right? So I had cut all my hair off and like tried to look like an MTV VJ to be in,
Dude.
and that's where I became Dan the Dragon Wilson. So
Yes.
I'm not too nostalgic for my fashion choices and hairstyles in those days, but I am nostalgic for the times.
That's how I found out about you. And I'll be honest, until way sooner than I probably want to admit, I did not put two and two together that you were both people, right? Like, so it's hilarious. And I'm trying to think, and before like we started doing this, it's like, when the fuck did I hear Dan on commentary the first time? Obviously it was Wildside, but it's like it had to be a match that was on LimeWire that was deemed important. So it had to be probably Killings AJ match, you know, or something. It had to be. And I just remember like Dan the Dragon Wilson, like, and I would even put you over to people like, bro, I tell you what, there's this fucking commentator. I don't know what happened to him, but he was fucking cool, bro. And then of course I was like, wait, the Reverend? And oh duh, dumbass. It's the same name, right? But yeah, you definitely did the Kevin Sullivan in that way.
Yeah, it was fun because that whole story got to play out on television. Like I was Dan the Dragon, and those were great years. I mean, obviously everybody asked me about Wildside, so we can delve
Yeah.
into that as little or as much as you want. But like those are great years, and I was. It's just like a testament to. And it's advice I could give young announcers now. There's way too many of them that go out here and try to fucking fillet themselves on commentary and get themselves over. It's not your job. Your job
Yeah.
is to put other people over. I was never the most athletic specimen. I was never like a fucking varsity athlete, as they would say on The Sopranos.
Right.
But I knew what my lane was, and I knew I could run my mouth, and I knew I had a creative mind for music and movies and, just like a bigger picture type of shit. And so I became successful at announcing, and doing that, I learned a lot from Stephen Prazak at that time, who had worked for ECW and a number of other places. So he kind of took me under his wing, and I became this very popular babyface announcer at
Yeah.
Wildside. And I didn't do it by getting myself over; it was just how well I got everybody else over. So surprise! That's if you just do your job well, then you'll get over anyway. You don't have to overdo it.
Yeah.
Um, but they saw that turn, just like Wildside had gone out of business, and I had disappeared to do another project with a band that was probably like my most successful band. It was a thrash band called All But Destroyed, and we put out a little EP, and we did a
Nice.
little small, like kind of mini regional tour where we went down to like Alabama and like some neighboring states and shit. But it fizzled out pretty quickly, but it was a good little hot run for a time, and I had a nice break from wrestling, and then I get a call from Tank, and he's like, "Hey man, you want to you want to come back and be a manager? And I was like, yeah, it's only what I always wanted to fucking do. Like that, I was hoping getting in the door as an announcer would lead to that. But then, of course, you get there and there's Jeff G. Bailey, like the greatest indie manager of all time. So you know you're not taking his spot. So I just like became his friend and soaked up all of the knowledge he could give me.
Smart
And then
man.
patiently, when it was my turn, I got to turn heel and was revealed as this sinister leader of this conspiracy to take down this new promotion. And the Devil's Rejects were born that way. And so they got to watch Day of the Dragon turn kind of into the Reverend there. And I've been doing the Reverend since 2005. And I've done the Dragon occasionally since then, like the later years of Anarchy before they closed down, NWA Anarchy.
Mhm.
Like I had disappeared for a few years anyway. So when I came back, I didn't really do the manager thing for very long. I'd managed Brad Cash for a little bit, but that wasn't working out. And he was wanting to turn heel, and I was just tired of being a babyface manager at the time because I hadn't really found the groove of the Rev as a babyface like I have
Yeah.
now. I was not understanding the assignment, and now I do. So I was just like, I'm going to take a break from managing, and I did some commentary again, and was like the commissioner matchmaker as Day of the Dragon again for like a year. Like so he came back
Nice.
for just a little bit, but of course I was just like dressed like myself now. Um, but you know, the Reverend is what people want to see nowadays, so that's what I give them.
It's such a unique thing because I think what you do is so different than anyone, not just in appearance and all that stuff, but what I really like is you are not a gimmick. And I was talking to my wife about this, and this is something that I think people that maybe don't, I don't even know what it is. I don't know what the hang up is because to me it's very clear. There's a difference between being a character and being a gimmick. And I think people forget that you can get lost in an idea. And you're so good at it, you always keep it down to earth. You always have that same, you have a tether, if you will. It never gets too over the top because how much more over the top can you fucking go from where you've been? And I like that too. It evolves with, like, you know, you get older, right? And all that. And then that becomes part of your promo, you know, like we'll get into it deeply. The freaking pit fight with Jaden that you guys did, that is like my favorite thing that has happened this fucking decade. And I'm really not kidding. Because you just were like, you know, we might be a little older now, but like we'll kill you. We will just fuck you up. And I love that. I love that you're not a gimmick because I think that's an important thing to really steer away from. And I don't know if that's, you know, something that you thought of right off the bat or what, but I really appreciate that. Ate that about the coven and the whole thing.
I really appreciate that. That actually means a lot because we try really hard to make sure that's the case. I think for me, and I can only speak for me, but I think it probably applies a little to Tank, or a lot to Tank, really more than me even, is that we both were fortunate enough to kind of come up in a bit of an older school time. So the territories were pretty much dead in 99, but there were like these mini territories. And so you did get a taste of wrestling as it was prior to really like WCW going out of business and kind of the Russoification of wrestling, where things started being more like an attitude era too. Like they're guilty of it too. Like winking at the camera shit more, like where as like the shit we grew up on was very earnest, and like even the most ridiculous shit like Kamala or Abdullah the Butcher, or like it was still very authentic and real. And so I never wanted to get outside of like the limits of credulity. Like you might can imply that maybe I'm casting a hex on somebody, or like you could imply that I'm invoking satanic powers to reach some sort of outcome. But like I'm never gonna cross that line of like,
Yeah.
which is where all the spooky gimmicks fail, is
Yes.
because they always take it too far. They always go past the line of, okay, this isn't wrestling anymore. You're insulting my intelligence, even though I know this is bullshit and I'm in with it, and that's okay. Like you're stepping across like the lines of the universe we've established. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you've established in the universe that it's fucking ghosts fighting each other or a fucking Frankenstein's monster, whatever, that's fine. But in the normal universe of wrestling, it's two guys fighting in a ring. And so I was like, we could take the serial killer kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, House of a Thousand Corpses ish vibe of like the evil hillbillies, and combine that with like black metal and King Diamond, and a lot of the big thing is also a really authentic Southern element, because people see us and they expect me to speak in like Shakespearean or do
Yeah.
like Latin shit or something. But like, no, like part of being these castaways from the Bible Belt that want to burn everything down is central to the Devil's Rejects and the Coven of the Goat.
Brother, you're speaking my language as somebody that grew up in northern Arkansas, and listened to, I mean, my dad had me on Ozzy out of the womb. He was like, your mom's gonna have you listen to country, fuck all that. Which, hey, you know what I mean? Country's fucking sick too, right? Like the old school shit's dope. But I so appreciated when he was like, nah, this is some shit. And it was Paranoid. And it's just okay. Now we're done. And then I dove into more the punk side of it. I got into like Operation Ivy, the Clash, all that shit. But it's all the same feeling, right? That fucking rebel, fuck you thing. And yeah, I definitely get that vibe from you, where it's like, no, this has to be rooted in this. This is important, because also that's a double-edged sword as well, where it's like when you're a heel, that really hurts them. Because like, no, I'm one of you. I'm one of y'all. I'm one of you church going. There's no difference between us. But then when you're a babyface, you're like, we're all y'all. So genius. But that comes with time. We're gonna go backwards. And a lot of probably why you look at it that way is 1992, you have on one channel Papa Shango and the fucking goo, right? Which clearly had an effect on you in just, ooh, that's not maybe where you go with it.
Yeah, I think that was the first time, like, as a kid, I was like, oh, that's fucking stupid. Like, I loved this. I thought this guy was cool as shit until you did that. And now I think it's hokey. The Undertaker suffered from that several times. And I was a huge fan of him as a kid. I feel like, when they had him shooting lightning bolts and shit, at some point, like, you've jumped the shark.
Yeah. Mine was the Rumble 94 where he ascended. Holy shit, man.
Yeah.
Tremendous. But on the other channel, what I'm getting at is maybe something that a lot of people don't know about you is I've seen you say a couple of times in different interviews and such that one of your favorite wrestlers, maybe favorite wrestler, is Michael PSAs. And
he's up there, yeah.
I see it though, because it's the gift of gab and being dedicated to what you're doing. And I'm doing that WCW pod. We're in the thick of 1992 right now. How fucking annoyed are you that Arn, Bobby Eaton, and PS as a fucking stable just didn't even become a thing? Like, fuck, man. That would have been so
many like half-baked ideas in that era that like started and this would be cool, and then it just kind of fell apart. That was unfortunate. But yeah, no, I fucking love Michael Hayes, and I only got to meet him once, even though like I have some mutuals with him. Like I knew Terry Gordy before he passed, and I knew his son Ray, and like his daughter Miranda I've worked a show with, but she's pretty close with Jaden. And so Terry's like from Chattanooga. He's one of our guys. So we're always gonna love and rep Terry Gordy. But of course, that also drew me to watch the other Freebirds. And then, Michael Hayes as the promo guy just stands out. The sinister minister Jim Mitchell calls me the satanic Michael Hayes.
Then I'm glad I was on the right wavelength here, because I see that. And another guy too, by the way, I don't know why we're just slandering this guy in the ring. He was pretty fucking good, man. Like, is he gonna give you a 5-star banger, if you will? I'm sure that probably annoys you as much as it does me. Maybe not, but he's gonna make you feel something.
Yeah, I thought there's a lot of internet revisionist history that they tried to say Michael Hayes sucked then. They tried to say Lex Luger sucked then. Now Luger at like the late 90s, he got a little broke down and was a little slower.
Yeah.
Than, still looked like a fucking $1,000,000. But man, Luger was over as fuck. He was as over as anybody over on WWF. He was, and they tried to shit on him, but like the guy looked great. He could move, especially when he was young. He'd throw a fucking drop kick. Luger didn't suck. Michael Hayes didn't suck. Those guys could work circles around a lot of guys now. And that's not to shit on the current generation. It's just like a totally different world.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Lex in 89. I put Lex in 89. Well, it's a weird year. So 1989, I know we are fucking just going in the weeds. I figure you probably don't mind. But dude, 1989. And again, I'm doing this WCW podcast, and my whole thing is I watch the shit. I'm not just here to fucking, maybe I skimmed it. No, we will watch this shit. First off, one of the best matches of that year is Barry Windham and Lex Luger for the U.S. title at Wrestle War. Unbelievable. And then to that point, I would say it's 1A, 1B as Wrestler of the Year in 89 between Lex and Barry. Barry's got a short 89, ends up in WWF, and all goes to shit as the Widowmaker. Dude, Lex Luger in 89 is killer. And had he not had to fucking turn babyface again to be in that dumb cage match with fucking Flair in February of 90, we might be having a bigger conversation about Lex Luger as a great.
Yeah, I am glad that people have kind of come off of that opinion now, and people are admitting that Lex Luger was awesome because he was. Like, Sting was awesome. Like, it was just a different style.
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew you'd appreciate a little WCW conversation here. And you'd mentioned that you start the rejects in Wildside, and it feels like you guys just hit the ground running. And obviously from Wildside you go to Anarchy. I don't recall, and I've listened to your pods with Chris Zollner, but it's been a little while. What was that transition from Wildside to Anarchy?
It was different because the business model kind of changed, and we weren't prepared for it initially, but we figured out what we needed to do pretty quick. And there was a lot of behind the scenes turmoil and changes in the early days of this. That it was supposed to be one owner at the beginning of Anarchy, and then within a couple of months they bailed out, someone else bought it, then someone else bought it. But within the first like 6 months, I feel like we started getting our footing, because Wildside was based on a very specific model that we kind of copy at TWE, which is you have this show that does television out of one place, and they also do like a student / training / tryout show on another night. So you run about 4 shows a month, and because of the TV, and you book a talent that people want to work with. So that's just, it's a good thing about having a buzz, right? Like at Wildside, people just wanted to come down. I mean, most of those guys didn't get paid at all for TV then. They do get paid at TWE. That has changed. But guys would come to do TV. So you would gather a lot of awesome pools of talent from different regions. They all kind of converge in Georgia, and we create this really cool, unique show. And the live gate was important, but we were more focused on making a TV show.
Yeah.
When Anarchy came about, it felt like the taste of the audience changed a little bit. And we didn't, initially in the early going of Anarchy, we didn't have TV. So we didn't have that like dangling carrot to be like, hey, do you want to come do this TV show? And, we can pay you much less than you'd probably normally get. but would you want to do it? And so we had to look at more like regional talent and more talent that was just from the area, which thankfully comprised a good bit of the Wildside crew, but it kind of eliminated some of the drive-ins, not all. We still had our reputation and we still had a lot of good contacts. So, occasionally we'd get crews from Texas or Florida. I mean, hell, fucking Milano Collection AT came down there one time and wrestled Chad Parham for the heavyweight title. So, like, we did have some outside talent occasionally. And AJ would always pop in because he was a TNA at the time. So, like, he would come in and do an angle or a match occasionally and pop a house. And we still had a lot of connections with those people. And then we were also still developing talent. So, like, at Anarchy, like, Xavier Woods came through there, and Cash Wheeler, and a lot of talent that ended up getting over today came through there, just like we did Wildside. But it was a little different. What I'm getting at, I'm rambling a little to say that Anarchy more focused on like, okay, Wildside was very much like we did the crazy angles and all, but it was very much more focused on like this great wrestling TV show. With Anarchy, we tweaked it and made things a little more old school and tried to really like get into the community and connect with the more blue collar folk.
Yeah.
And that's where kind of the rejects being the heels really took off, of course. And they had a lot of great baby faces like Slim J and Ace Rockwell that they loved, Urban Assault Squad. And then the owner, Jerry Palmer himself, was a great baby face. So that's when we finally, 2006 is really when we started kind of discovering some magic with Anarchy. 2005 was the first year. Well, Wildside ended in April of 2005. So it came back a couple months later, and there till the end of the year was a little rough going, but we finally
I would
kicked
imagine
the door open.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels almost like that was like a similar sort of environment that you're seeing now in the indies, right? Like it's post WCW, it's post ECW, and you go from this established thing in the South, Wildside, that was big. And I didn't realize this till later because my age is like a little bit on that weird bubble where like I just missed it, and I'm not from around there, so I just didn't know until I got online. So my first any sort of real like, okay, that's Dan Wilson, the Rev, is Anarchy, and it's 2006, like you said, because a lot of it, and you'll remember this, those early YouTube days were what I'd like to call the Wild West. And man, you'd find every fucking thing on YouTube. And me being a guy that missed the fucking tape trade era, I gobbled it up. That was kind of my tape trade era. And part of that was people would throw Anarchy on there. And of course, the match that always gets discussed about Anarchy is the War Games. I believe it was 2007 or 6. Maybe you did too.
We did too. The 2006 one was, it's hard to say it was bigger because the 2007 one actually drew more, but the 2006 one was like the white hot babyface heel feud with the Devil's Rejects against Team Anarchy, where if the babyfaces won, Jerry got 5 minutes in the cage with me, and then we fucked him and ripped the door off the cage and came in and then locked him in it and beat the shit out of him and sent him to the hospital. And we had an ambulance. Jerry was an EMT and a firefighter, so he had an ambulance come and take him away. That's awesome. The fans followed the ambulance to the hospital. That's like one of my crowning moments in wrestling, that they believed that much in 2006.
Dude, I mean, I'll say it right now. If you really found a place and you booked it consistent and you really were studious, well, all about this. You fucking have done it at TWE. People believe this shit, man. Like, you really can take them on a journey. It's not easy, but it's also not like an impossibility. So yeah, the first one's what I remember because of the promos behind the cage, and I fucking love that element. I wish we saw more of it in modern wrestling, specifically TV wrestling. It's like a layup to me. And of course, it's like probably a play off of the Hogan in the blue cage gimmick. I remember that as a kid as well. But yeah, that's probably what I'm most interested in, is how those promos came off, because they were fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, man, those promos were crazy because they were shot in the arena after taping like 2 hours or 2 weeks worth of television in a night,
Oh,
shooting all these crazy angles. And so we're fucking exhausted. We're all just exhausted. So every bit of that was just pulled straight out of my ass because I was like delirious tired, having no sleep and a day full, and it was like the summer in the building in Cornelia, which is maybe hotter than the
oh,
seventh level of hell. And I somehow still had some makeup on my face for the promo, which was pretty impressive
yeah.
because that shit melts even with the best of setting sprays and shit. uh, these southern summers ain't no joke, man.
Yeah, it ain't, folks.
uh,
Fuck. I live in Florida now. I know all about it.
And so the cage bit, Jeff G had done it a few times, and he had told me he had gotten it from the old Mid Atlantic promos where they would used to do the cage matches, and it was fucking hilarious. There's a really hilarious blooper from that promo. So Jeff used to always do the apple in the cage, and that was what we were copying. And he was like, "Yeah, I got it from these old Mid Atlantic promos." And so you take an apple, like, this is your face, and you fucking,
Yeah.
and I've used that numerous times. Like, I would take other fruit when we have like a barbed wire match, like tomatoes, and like cut them on the barbed wire, and you can see the fucking juice running down. Like, this is what's gonna happen to you, motherfucker.
Motherfucker.
Um, and so I had my apple like tucked up under my robe, ready to fucking pull out in the promo. And I was nailing the promo. And it's long as shit. It's so funny because the Twitter era now, it's like, oh, it's going to be 2 minutes because people don't have an attention span. And they don't have an attention span. But if it's fucking good, you'll pay attention. And
Yep.
somehow it needs to be longer than 2 minutes. I don't know if this one needed to be 5.5 minutes or however fucking long it was. It
Yeah.
was like an old school promo. Like, we just went. But
Yeah.
so I go to pull the apple out and I'm gonna fucking put it in the cage and I drop the motherfucker. But it's all off camera. So you never see me drop it, but you hear it. You hear it hit the ground. There's a thud, a distinctive thud in the promo, and you can hear the apple hit the ground. And I'm like, fuck, but I didn't want to cut, so I just, said fuck it and kept going. So Jerry, when the baby faces do their promo, picks the apple I drop up and uses it in his promo, and it was fucking perfect.
That's fucking great. I remember that part of it too. So that's hilarious that was originally the Rev gonna do the fucking cage gimmick. That's fucking great. And the match is incredible. I mean, all these guys. You got Southern Azrael, you got Iceberg, Sean Tempers, who, how good was Sean Tempers? That's a guy that needs to be studied by like every young guy.
We'll say Sean Tempers fans keep a lookout. Trying to make sure
Oh,
people don't forget him. He's retired. He ain't coming back to wrestling, but
yeah.
you might hear his name soon. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Hell yeah. And of course, your man Tank. And then the other side, no big deal. Ace Rockwell, who another one, like way more conversation that needs to be had about that guy. Nemesis, Shadow Jackson, and Slim J, all just top baby faces. And Slim J, of course, a legend in the South.
Oh
So
yeah.
God, I was criminally unaware of how good he was. And another one that I finally put together later that like, oh yeah, no, he's from the fucking Hydro guys, like the fucking yeah. So I put it all together and went, well, no wonder everyone watched his fucking tapes because he was doing shit in 2003 that just defied any logic whatsoever. So that was crazy. So Anarchy starts hot though not starts hot, but gets hot with this stuff. You do 2 war games in a row, 2 years in a row anyway. And then like where does Anarchy go? I mean, I know it keeps running. It keeps running for a little bit and there's ownership changes.
Yeah, it went out of business finally a few years ago. I probably for too long stayed loyal to that place to my detriment at some points because I just wanted to, make sure it was preserved. But there were outside forces that were gonna sabotage that no matter what. And then, the building is like, I think about to be demolished now because of the it's just property of the state now, I believe. So,
Yeah.
so that sucks, but yeah, it did keep going, and we had some good years. Like we did 2007, we did a heel feud with the NWA Elite, where me and Jeff G. Bailey finally got to feud with each other. So it was kind of like a teacher versus student thing, and that's what the 2007 War Games was. And we took that pretty much all the way up to December of the next year, or up to December of that year. And then we done like 2-year-long blood feuds. So they finally did the deal where, the rejects started going after the belts, and Iceberg won the heavyweight title, and Tempers and Azrael won the tag titles. Tank disappeared for a while after the second War Games because he moved to Ohio for a while. That's where you see his IWA Mid-South stuff really start picking up.
Yeah.
Because he was in the Midwest at the time. So we did an angle that wrote him off. And so the rejects were just the three of them for a while. And that was awesome too. I love having all of them, but sometimes the less people you have to manage, it makes your creative shit easier. And so we found a cool groove with that. Got to do the NWA 60th anniversary show at the Phillips Arena, where Iceberg defended the title on a fucking show that had the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. Abdullah Butcher versus Tommy Rich. Sid Vicious was on it. Cornette was on it. Just got to work with all these fucking cool ass people. Smoked weed with X-Pac on that show.
This is the coolest thing you could probably ever do.
Yeah, it was a great fucking time. And so that's a fond memory I have of that time. And then after a while, we start running out of shit to do. The reject splits up. We do an angle where Tank comes back and feuds with Sean Tempers as a babyface. And like me and Tempers are trying to say, we own the rejects, and then they feud, and they have a compound death match, which finally made its way online. It hadn't been up for years, but Bill Barron's posted it on his NWA Wildside YouTube channel. And it's Tank versus Sean Tempers and me in a handicap match. And Tank beats my fucking ass in that match. Took out a lot of years of travel frustrations and booking disagreements on me there. It was rough, but it was fun. That match was awesome.
That's fucking great, man. Yeah, because I just feel like, very early on in my online sort of life, I got really late into that. I was like 14 when I got the internet, and I'm old enough to have that not be a thing. But we mentioned earlier, from the woods, so that definitely factors in, as you understand as well. It was first obviously Wildside at the end, but then Anarchy was like a thing. And I do recall watching a little bit of Anarchy there. And then it's like, 08, 09 sort of just fades a little bit from at least my purview. And then it's like Cage Match is the most unreliable source when it comes to specifically yourself, because there is like the biggest gap of all time. And I'm like, listen, I know Dan was doing some shit here. I know that you go away though, and I don't know when that is.
Yeah, so Anarchy, I stayed there probably till about 2011 when my daughter was born.
Okay.
Then I stayed more close to home for a while. I didn't really want to be out traveling in her early years, and to be there involved with my kid. I did a lot of shit in Chattanooga and 30, 45 minutes away. Like I probably go max an hour from the house, anywhere I could be back in a pretty reasonable amount of time. From 2011 to 2015. So it's like a 3 or 4 year stretch where I was not I was doing shows, but I wasn't traveling. I was just trying to build up a show here. I ran shows starting in 2010. I ran a promotion called NWA Chattanooga, which was kind of the birth of all of this renaissance of Chattanooga wrestling, because we didn't have fuck all, but Paulie, and he's ran a show here for fucking years, but it's about what you'd expect. So I just, I felt like there was more than there was a different style of wrestling that could succeed in Chattanooga to be nice. And not
Mm-hmm.
fucking bury anybody. And so I wanted to get more of like the wild side type guys up here and do some different shit and some just high quality shows. And so we did the NWA Chattanooga. Lasted about 2 years. We had a good run in a middle school in the suburbs of Chattanooga. And then like the ownership, well, not the ownership, but the guy that ran the gym at the school changed, and you know how that happens. So they didn't really want to do the wrestling anymore when a new person came in, and we tried a different venue and that didn't work out. So that kind of shut down. But the movement, for lack of a better word, that I started there kind of begat Empire Wrestling, which was a promotion out of Rossville, Georgia. And there was that show was really good for a time, but it was also a lot of like wasted potential. I felt like because we did so much good stuff and some really hot angles like that never really nobody saw outside of that building, even though we filmed them. And like so there's like sporadic things from Empire that are out there that have been released, but they're still not and because we took that fucking angle that we did to basically every territory in the South, where we would come in, we'd fuck up the top baby faces, we'd build to a war games, we'd put them over and go to the fucking next one. We did it in Alabama, we did it in Tennessee, we did it in Georgia, we did it in fucking lots of different places. So this is basically what we did again in Empire. We came up with, a different cast of rejects because like Sean Tempers was still around, but Berg, that was a pretty long haul for Berg. He was like 5 hours away. So we had another guy named Rufus Black, who was just like basically like a copy of me. Like he had fucking Memphis of us, right? And like, just find another one.
Yeah.
And I did that until about 2015, 2016. I went back to Georgia amid one of the many Anarchy ownership changes there. And started helping out booking that again. And I lasted about 2 years before I quit. But we did some cool shit in that time. The most memorable thing from that time is the yard call match between Slim J and Corey Hollis. That's the most memorable thing I probably booked during that time.
Infamous, of course, from the Exile on Bad Street podcast, because you guys had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, that match was fucking hilarious. And the whole feud with Slim and Corey Hollis was great. I think a lot of it is on IWTV, but I'm not really sure how much of the because that was part of our dispute. Like the new owner, among other things, and disputes we had about truths and non-truths. One of them was like I'd set up. We were one of the inaugural promotions on Powerbomb TV, and like I had this pitch explained to me by Jerry, I think it was, about what they were trying to do, basically like starting the Netflix of indie wrestling. And I was like, oh yeah, we need this. We need the TV. Like that's what this whole building has always been predicated on, is having a goddamn television show. So I get this deal set up and we're fucking rolling, and we last about a year on there, and the owner decides to switch to Fightful without even fucking really consulting me, because they could offer him a pay-per-view option because he didn't think we were making enough money off of the streams. And of course, he went to Fightful and made way less than he made on Powerbomb, and I guess, dropped the deal with Fightful pretty soon after that, and they didn't have TV again. And I don't think they had TV from then until they closed down. So, I mean, they might have done some stuff for YouTube. But I was out after 2018. That was my last attempt at trying to save it. Also, another cool thing we did do that time, though, we did that Wildside reunion in 2017, I think it was.
I do recall that, yes.
And that was awesome. It was so great to see so many of those guys I hadn't seen in for fucking ever. Got to see, New Jack there one last time. It wasn't the last time I saw him. Last time I saw him was when we came back after our retirement. Fucking that, not ever using that fucking word again.
Yeah, right.
It's when we came back after that, I saw New Jack at the ICW show in Florida, which was like one of our first shows back, and that was the last time I saw it. But the Wildside reunion was the last time I saw him before that, and like AJ was there, and all of it was awesome.
Yeah, that was like that got a lot of steam because obviously AJ came back, and you know it kicked up that. Wait, why is AJ on this indie show? And it's like, well, because it's his fucking place, you know what I mean? And these are his people and all that stuff. And you mentioned, and I know that and this is how deep I go. So, speaking of IWTV, I previewed there was this weird card based shoot thing called Life ETC, something like that, right? You and Tank do one. Yeah, I love that premise, by the way. I really wish it would come back. I think it's fucking great. You had mentioned that a lot of why you guys left was because of the bullshit, and hearing what you're saying about your situation, and knowing how wrestling was at that time. You're talking about, like, 2017, 18, that sort of range. I can see why you fucking bowed out because it was really fucking toxic. And so you bow out. And what was life like then for a little bit?
So yeah, 2018, I dip out. I did leave on amicable enough terms that they invited me back to go into the Hall of Fame in 2019, and that was really cool because like Bill and AJ and other people were there. That was like what I presumed was going to be my last wrestling appearance. I wanted to try something different in the creative space. My thought about maybe going back starting another band, but I'd also had an itch to make horror movies. And so, and I'd done a lot of fun wrestling podcasts, which were just dumb as shit. They're not really worth going back to listen to. Like, it's us just doing stupid bits. But, I mean, there are some fun interviews on, like some of them did like a Wildside series, and like, so there's a few that are worth checking out. But most of it, like the ones with me and Andrew Alexander, are just fucking stupid. I love that guy, but we were just fucking clowning. But I done it, like I did an interview with Phil Anselmo and some other musicians and shit during that time. So that was cool. But I said, okay, I'm gonna start a horror podcast. I'm gonna kind of go into the horror space. Like I started the Rev is an easy transition for that. And go try to make some short films and start a horror movie podcast where we just talk about movies. And it was called Seeking Human Victims, and it ran for 20 seasons. And that was like we do like 4 seasons a year, so it's not like we ran for 20 years, but like we would break it down like 10 to 12 episodes on a certain theme, and then talk about a movie in that scope of that theme on each episode. So like me and my friends and my wife would watch it, and then I would like meticulously research all of the behind the scenes shit, and I would kind of like present it, and we would just fucking talk about it. It's cool. It's still out there if you want to check it out. People have asked if it's coming back. Maybe one day. It just got too hard to juggle it and wrestling again once it picked back up, especially when I took more office jobs again. It was somewhat easy to manage when I was just a talent. But now that I've been back full swing into like running a company and shit, it's probably not coming back anytime soon. But it was a fun podcast and definitely worth a listen. And I made 2 short horror films that are on YouTube on the One Good Scare Productions YouTube page. One is called I Got a Rock. It is a cursed object story about a historical society's Christmas party that gets fucking ambushed by the Bell Witch. And then there's another one called Sanctuary, starring NWA Wildside star Cool Seth DeLay of all people.
Here we go.
And a friend of ours named Grace Young, and it's fun. It's like a home invasion slasher, kind of a la The Strangers, and that was like my very first attempt at filmmaking. They both turned out okay, and I learned a lot in that process. They're not world beaters or nothing, but they're fun, stupid little shorts. And in that process, though, it gave me a lot of ideas for if I ever came back to wrestling. And you can see even the stuff I produce upon the return has been of a lot higher quality. And then, of course, I teamed up with Nathan, who is a professional filmmaker by trade. And when we get to firing our ideas and shit back and forth, like, yeah, I've just found my creative twin. I feel like Tank very much so in like the wrestling side of things, but like Nathan so much in the creative, like kind of outside the box type of thing. I that's my brother, man. Like we fucking were very meticulous about recruiting this new class of people for Coven of the Goat. And I mean, at this point, Nathan's the only new one that's really stuck it out, you know. And not only has he stuck it out, he's embraced it and thrived and used it to make himself a star. And he's come a long way. You can watch some of the early Kill Billy matches. They weren't that fucking great. But
Yeah.
now he is really coming to his own and starting to figure out who he is as a wrestler and becoming a bona fide star. And I couldn't be prouder of him. And as a creative partner, he is just 10 out of 10. I can't say enough great things about him. I consult him on the Blood and Honey shows as well. We're always pitching ideas back and forth on shit. So like we have a really cool thing going on.
Oh, and that blood and honey shit, man, that's some of the coolest shit that's going on anywhere right now. I love how it's shot. Now hearing, why it's shot like that, I can see why it looks so goddamn good. And just like the talent, it seems like just a revolving door of awesome fucking talent. And it's comes down to that, right? Like when the people that are running the show are chill, seems like the show just seems to flow and come together. And I see a lot of that conversation around Blood and Honey too in my parts of dorkdom online. So yeah, you guys are killing it with that.
Thank you. I can't say enough about Blood and Honey. Like I've done a lot of traveling in the last few years, and we've been all over. We've worked for AEW, we've worked for Ring of Honor, we've worked for GCW, we've worked for this, that, and the other promotion. Fucking Time Bomb in Fargo, North Dakota, in January when it was a goddamn negative 20 degrees.
Oh,
We've done a lot of travel in the last few years to remind people of what we bring to the table, and that I feel at least, and I'm obviously biased, that we're on the level of anybody else in the business as far as being able to deliver the goods. And we wanted to show people that this year Hank is kind of slowing things down, as you've seen, so we're not really traveling as much. That is by choice. I probably we traveling a little. Like there's some ICW stuff coming up and
yeah.
some cool things coming up there. So we're not getting out there at all, but like the desire to chase down, oh, we've got to be at this place this weekend and that place this weekend so everybody sees us, has more shifted this year into like we have something really special with our Southeast region right now, with Action, TWE, and Blood and Honey all working together, basically sister companies at this point, because there is like interweaving parts to all three. Whereas like I help Nathan with the creative on Blood and Honey, Matt Griffin helps him with promotional shit. And so then Matt runs Action, and then Matt also, Action recently is become the owners of TWE. I don't think I'm supposed to say that, but like,
Okay.
and so like, I mean, I think it's obvious you buy the ticket, you have to fucking pay them now. So I don't know how long he thought he was going to keep it a secret, but
Yeah.
so like, but it's more like nothing has changed as far as running it. Like, but the Jaden's grandfather is retiring, and he's the one that built that promotion with his bare hands, and we wanted to ensure that it lived on. So Matt Griffin is ensuring that it lives on. Like we've got very competent people there that know how to manage and run a show, so he doesn't really have to do much. But
Mm.
but yeah. So what I'm saying is like there's this interweaving scene, and SCI is part of that too. I
Yep.
was one of the co-founders of SCI, and fucking now still help book it.
Didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So like, we've got our hands in a lot of pies, but they all kind of connect together. And I love it because it's kind of become a place to be. And that's what we wanted out of it. And then we don't have to fucking leave or don't have to go very far. It's down the road to Atlanta. And we get to do all of this great shit and build this awesome scene that people want to come to us. And I'm so fucking proud of that. And Blood and Honey, I know that's what you asked about. So here's my long way to go around Bilbo to get to my ass and tell you that. Blood and Honey is so fucking cool because it's different than any other indie show in the country. Because not just the production, but that's a part of it. And Nathan's so fucking humble. He doesn't ever like brag that, oh, hey, did you know I have a gold record because I directed the fucking Judas video for Fozzy, or I directed all these award-winning documentaries, or I'm doing this super cool metal documentary that's gonna blow your fucking minds when you find out who's in it and when it comes out. No, he's just super fucking, the most humble dude on the planet, but he is. So those are elements, of course, that always make Blood and Honey successful. But another element is most of these people aren't wrestling fans. This is like an Atlanta nightlife event. Now, sure, we have some deathmatch fans that come out for it and travel it even for it. Absolutely. And there's some wrestling fans that come out to check it out, and old people from the Georgia scene and shit. But like 70-80% of that crowd is like local Atlanta metalheads, goth girls, alt people, punks, Ren Fair people, all of my little weirdos out there in Atlanta. And they have found a home in Blood and Honey, and we're wrestling to them. They don't watch wrestling. They watch Blood and Honey, and they come to it and they support it, and they're not jaded. They're not these fucking fans that have seen everything under the sun or sitting there on their hands like, look at impress me. Ugh. Like, these people are losing their mind over a fucking arm drag, and they were going to throw somebody through a goddamn spider net fucking death pit, at the fucking end of the show. So. Yeah. And they love it. So it's such a cool environment. The meadery is such a cool place. It's just a big party, and it's adult, and it's raw and raunchy and fucking a damn good time.
And it's all on Nathan's YouTube, I believe. And obviously the newest one is on IWTV as well, but I don't know how that all works. By the way, love that. Love anyone that does the distribution method of like very much hey, you hear about how dope this show is? Sit on it a little bit. Get excited about it. We're not just going to fucking hand it to you. I really appreciate that because, again, I remember going to a fucking video store and being like, oh, shit, finally I get to see Spring Stampede 94. You know what I mean? Like, I love it, man.
I guess in this world of instant gratification, there's still some desire to anticipate something, and Nathan does a good job with that. And yeah, he did just recently ink a deal with IWTV to add those there too. And IWTV is great about that because they've never required exclusivity. So I don't understand why some people have a big hard-on for like, well, IWTV is ripping promotions off, and it's like, you can do anything else you want to with that footage. It's not an exclusive contract.
Also, let's just say I know somebody that has their stuff on IWTV, and like, bro, it is quite literally a meritocracy on there. If you're mad about your pay, then get your folks to watch that shit on a loop. Leave that motherfucker on your TV while you're gone. You'll be making money. Like, it's not hard to make money on there, right? Like, it's in what you said, like, it's easy to deal with these people. It is what it is. I mean, God, Anarchy's doing simulcasts now, YouTube, IWTV, fucking everybody is that I know of that's on there. That's a big deal.
Indie wrestling is such a difficult environment to survive in. We are rats fighting over fucking crumbs. And so instead of like shitting on each other and trying to find ways to fucking clown people's distribution methods, like maybe see how you can do more. Like, fucking strange concept, I know.
Maybe let's add a little water to that fucking them crumbs and add up a little bit of them. And then next thing you know, we got a starter. We can get some new bread in this motherfucker. You never know.
No, it's true. Like, I mean, and thank you to everybody that watches TWE specifically, but Blood and Honey and Action and all on IWTV, YouTube, or wherever you watch it. that little bit, Bill Barron's, the great Bill Barron's, one of my father figures and mentors in wrestling, would always say, a living in wrestling is cobbled together not by a Brinks money truck backing up to your house and giving you a shitload of money, but many small income sources cobbled together. And that IWTV money pays some bills for TWE at the end of the month every month. So, like, maybe we're not making what we could, but we're quite happy with what we're making. And the viewership has gone way up on TWE in the last few years. So, like, it's clearly like the booking and stories and the shit we're doing is working and keeping people, because that's kind of the point of the wrestling we do. Is like, it's week to week. The stories are ongoing. There's a hook. We want you to come back next time. So happy to see that that's working. And yeah.
So I think it's time to jump into this. You were gone. You come back. I believe that was obviously, you had to wait a little bit because you go out of the wrestling business, and then a couple of years later, this thing called COVID happens. So you weren't going to be doing shit anyway. So that happens. And then when is it? And the same show I talked to you about, the wrestling life, etc. The way that Tank put it was that you guys kind of always were like texting kind of bullshit, like, watch some wrestling. Yes, every now and then. And then finally, just one of you just went, we'll kind of just jump back into this. Maybe we can make this happen again. How did that kind of start happening with you guys?
So COVID happens, and the movie thing's going pretty good. Like, I got one of my shorts into a film festival, and like then COVID happens, and that all kind of grinds to a halt. And especially like all the fucking wrestling people were sensitive about COVID, and rightfully so. I'm not one of those motherfuckers. Don't get me wrong, but like you thought wrestling people were sensitive about COVID. Horror movie people were like fucking way like oversensitive about it, which I get. We didn't know what was going on in those early days, but like fucking no, you couldn't find anybody to do any projects with. like nobody was doing shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. And then our podcast, where it was this great thing where we would watch the movie in person and have beers and sit around a table and shoot the shit, like, became like, oh, well, we're gonna do it on fucking Skype again. All right. And then that just became the way we did it after a while, because it was more convenient. And so bored sitting at home, it's like, I'm gonna watch some old wrestling. I'm kind of getting nostalgic for wrestling. I haven't. So I watched like some old WCW. Well, it was probably like early 90s. I mean, the shit I watched as a kid. It was just nostalgia shit. And I still got that warm fuzzy feeling. So I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, there's this new show. Of course there's a new promotion ran by a fucking multimillionaire right when I retire, because that's what fucking happens. That's my timing. It's great.
And he posted on DVDVR and knows me. Fuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Put me over when I met him. I was like, well, he was like, oh, yeah, Dan the big fan. I was like, what the fuck? That's cool.
Thanks, coach.
But yeah, so I see this and I start watching it. And I was like, all right, what are they doing? Oh, well, they got fucking Sting. They got this guy and that guy. And like, okay, it's on the old WCW channels, and it's kind of trying to invoke that vibe. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. And like, there was shit I loved and shit I didn't like on it. But I thought, to see crowds hot for wrestling and not WWE, because we came through our prime breakout years were in the chasm when WWE was the only game in town, and we were a fucking development territory for WCW also, by the way. Yes. So that was the first of many times I got the rug pulled out from under me. I thought I was in the fucking pipeline, and then WCW goes out of business. And so there was just this long gap where TNA tried, and some of our guys did go on and become stars there, but it was still not the same as having another company owned by a multi-billionaire spending WCW money. And so it was just gave me a little optimism about the business again. And I noticed that a lot of the shitty attitudes, like Joey Ryan, had kind of been excommunicated from wrestling. And he was one of the things that I fucking hated. And I felt so fucking vindicated when it came out of that he was just a fucking piece of shit. Because, which, like, I'm not gonna get on a soapbox about it, but like I don't expect everyone in fucking wrestling to be a morally perfect fucking person. There are some lines you don't cross, and I'm definitely not cool with that. But like it is a carny outlaw business of fucking entertainers, which in any capacity are gonna be some wild and crazy, not always fucking super savvy motherfuckers, right? But fuck, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
I was about to say, like, just full disclosure, because I don't fucking care anymore. You're saying this right, and I'm like hitting fucking weed out of a fucking elephant's ass over here. So,
Oh yeah, no, it's fine.
like, you're right. Like fucking charlatans. Yeah, you were talking about Dickhead, Joey Ryan, and
Oh yeah,
how
right.
vindicated.
Like so I just saw this thing at first, and I was like, I don't want to be a crotchety old asshole that shits on the new guys. I've never wanted to be that. Terry Funk is my favorite wrestler. He always was very laser focused on making sure you leave it right for the next people and you don't shit on them, and you try to help them. And I really believe that, and I've shown it. I feel like in my career, but also like I hated this shit. I was like, this is just an excuse for this motherfucker to get women to touch his dick. That's all the fuck it is. And I knew it. And people were like, oh, you're old and out of touch and you just don't get it. And then I was fucking right. There's just some nuance in the world, is what I'm saying.
I have an amazing story about that, actually. So long story short, my wife and I lived apart for a year, long distance. She lived here in Florida. I was getting my shit together in Arkansas to make the big move. So in that time, I got her into wrestling, and she fucking got into wrestling. Like when we first like were together, those first couple of years, she was fucking deep into it. So much so that like nothing to do with me. She's like, hey, you won't believe this. I'm going to this indie show in Gainesville, and there's like names on here. And it was like Swerve and Darby, like cool shit. But his ass was on there too. And this is as fucking awful as this guy is. It was a Mother's Day show. And this motherfucker is like on stage doing the fucking gimmick. And my wife, right then and there, first time she ever saw the gimmick, went, oh, he's a sex pest. And I was like, yeah, it's weird, but I wasn't even at that point yet with it. I just didn't like it. I'll be honest. I never got it with him as a wrestler, period. I thought he was very, very, as the kids say, mid at best, but she was like, I'm telling you right now. And one of the women in the match he was in, because the whole thing, of course, was I'm going to wrestle all the women. And this is when we became a huge fan of Trish Adora. She said, let me tell you something. Trish Adora's in the corner, like watching him, like, okay. The second she got in the ring with him, she fucking took his head off with a fucking lariat and beat the shit out of him. So yeah, you're not the only one. There were a couple of us there going, this is fucking weird, man.
Yeah, and so that was like the hot prevailing thing was that, and shit kind of inspired by it. And I was like, well, if this is wrestling, like I'm good. And that had kind of gone away when I decided to come back around. And the deathmatch shit had started exploding. And it started exploding in a way that was different than some of the previous deathmatch promotions where there actually were like good stories being told. Like Jeff G. Bailey had been a fan of ICW No Holds Barred before I even came back and was like telling me about it and even made me go to a show with him in Florida. So I went and just hung out as a fan. Like he got us on the guest list, and I just went to watch it, and I was like, oh, this looks like fucking fun. Yeah, I might be interested in doing this. That's kind of where the big seeds were planted for the comeback too, because that happened just a few months before we had that conversation.
That's so funny because later, when ICW comes to Chattanooga, Jeff G. Bailey's all over it. And I always wondered like what that connection was outside of just obviously he's from the area, but like That's so fucking cool that a guy like him is into this shit, right? Like it's just he really loves wrestling.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's always loved deathmatch. Like he would order the
That's
fucking
cool.
DVDs from Smart Mark and
Yeah.
what have you, and we'd go, smoke a fucking blunt and sit around and watch him at his house. And he was just the biggest deathmatch fan. And then of course, like he was the one that got me into ICW. And I was like, okay, well, now that we're doing this, like I want to give a hand back to Jeff. And so like after we've done a few shows for them, we looked into opening up Chattanooga as a territory for them and met with TWE, and that's really where my working relationship with TWE started more regularly for the behind the scenes stuff. Cause I had come back and we were working some shows, but once the ICW stuff started coming into play, like we started getting involved more in the creative and other shit there and just kind of being more of a part of that team to eventually it just became home. But
That's so cool. And to me, I don't know what all you did before the pit fight in March of 2022. And the reason I say that is because I had like a weird sort of thing like yourself where AEW starts and I'm fucking right in on the ground floor. I was at the third ever show for AEW. But I live here in Jacksonville, full disclosure. I live here. So that's the other one. It's like with you, right? But it's like crazier because it's like, this is my backyard. Well, fuck, I'm going all the time. Like I'm gonna be there. So I was like AEW. And at the time, Ring of Honor was falling off, and this was way after that. I just didn't I wasn't in the indie scene for whatever reason. I really loved the indies as a kid in the 2000s, like loved it. I was as big of an IWA Mid-South mark as you could find. I'd sit on the bootleg sites and watch all that shit. And, you guys with the Anarchy and Wildside stuff. But for whatever reason, life happens, right? And you just sort of like fall out of it. And I get married, and that's awesome. But things get away from you. Next thing you know, you're like, fuck, I haven't watched like wrestling in a long time. And around this time is when I started getting really sort of disenfranchised with AEW because of a certain someone sort of causing his bullshit. And I'm just kind of like, dude, we really are going to just do a Hogan WCW situation here with every fucking guy from WWE. So I was kind of low on it. And that's when I get into indie stuff and all of that. And now I'm watching backwards, and God, this is probably 2 months ago. I'm about to talk to Jaden, and I'm like, what's Jaden Newman done in his career? Let's check this guy out. When he said yes, I knew of him and everything, but not deeply. And I find this match in a cage with Tank, and I see you guys cutting this promo in the ring, and it's like when you know it's real, like when you know what's being said is real. Like, the whole like you needed your granddaddy to build you a wrestling company and all this shit. And then Jaden told me, he's like, hey man, like, back then when I came in, like nobody was fucking cool with me. And one of the worst ones was Tank. And so I'm 37. I've been watching this since 94. I'm one of those folders, right? Like I'm respectful, but I am, right? Like you got to really do something. And you guys fucking did something. It became my life for a week. Watching you guys and just all of it, right? Like all of it, like your shit. And I'd interacted with you before because of seeing you on Twitter, and just, I love the whole deal. Like it just fucking, it speaks to me deeply as a human being and all my interests. But this shit was like, holy fuck. Like wrestling exists. You can do wrestling like it used to be done. So what kind of, when the call was made or whatever of like, hey, we're doing this. We're going to do Jaden and Tank in the pit. You guys fucking just went with it.
yeah, so I mean, you're right. Like all of that did come from reality, and that's where the best shit comes from, right? And the great thing about it was we had made amends with Jaden over all that. And I was never really mean to Jaden. I might have shit talked the
Right.
kid getting his himself a wrestling promotion, bought a time or two. But every time I was around him, I was very nice to him. But he actually was a fan that used to come watch the NWA Chattanooga shows that I ran.
He said
So
that in
that's
my interview with him. He said it was really surreal for him to work with you. So that was cool.
yeah, that was where I first met Jaden, and he was a child, like a literal child. Um, and like he wanted to get trained, but we didn't have the means to train him, and he was like 14 or something. So we were like, nah, a little too young. And so I think that's sort of indirectly what led to his grandpa starting him his show, which got him a lot of flack from the old timers. So he, of course, being a young guy, fucking with a chip on his shoulder, harbored a pretty big grudge over that for a long time. And when we came back, Tank specifically went up there and made amends with Jaden and his grandpa and apologized to them for any trouble that he'd caused them, and that he didn't really know them, and after getting to know them, he realized he liked him, and we probably should have been doing stuff together the whole time, and blah 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 blah. So there's a big warm fuzzy. Everybody's working together. We're having a good time. And this goes on a few months. Like we did a couple angles at TWE before we got to the ICW thing. Like he did a feud with Derek Neal. That was his first real feud when he came back.
Love Derek Neal.
And that lasted so the Derek Neal feud started as like a feud between him and Tang, and Derek Neal had like his little stooges called the Deadwood Boys. And that built to a parking lot brawl match where Tank and Derek Neal fought in the parking lot at TWE. And Tank won by making Derek Neal submit by waterboarding with gasoline.
That fucking rules so much.
But then we like put it on pause and came back, and Derek Neal, we reignited that feud. And that's how the Covenant of the Goat was born. Was the Covenant of the Goat. We got them together to fight the Deadwood Boys. So that's some early of my involvement in TWE lore there for you. But so we said, okay, ICW is coming. We want to do something big. And Jaden's like, I don't know if I want to do a full death match, but I'd like to fight in the pit. And we're like, we got to do Jaden versus Tank. So we come to Danny and we pitch this whole Battle of Chattanooga idea, and to use this real life animosity and these real feelings that they have both felt to tell a good story. And I feel like we really did. And I appreciate you saying that, because I do feel like it was a creative and financial success. And that's one not a lot of people talk about.
Oh, man. And it's just one of those, like, there's so much greatness in it on every level. It's like you guys some things just work. And that's one of them. But it works on a higher level because you didn't just set on that, right? Like it wasn't just like, well, this is going to work because it's Jaden versus people are going to come. Sure. But let's fucking go that other mile and let's make this shit. And the real key to that was Jaden coming out and responding. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, baby faces don't have fire anymore. And motherfucking Jaden Newman at the end of that match, regardless of the outcome, at the end of that promo, regardless of the outcome, he had fucking fire.
Oh yeah, the way the audience like crowd surfed him into the fucking cage. It was
so cool,
fucking cool.
Oh, it's so good. And like, that sort of just cemented to me that like, dude, this is why the Southeast is what it is, because you guys give a shit. And I can't say enough about that. And then Jaden would go on and say what you have already said, which was, around this time and onward, just you really became a huge part of the backstage, and this sort of thing has begun, like you said, this sort of sister promotion thing with Action, you guys, and now Blood and Honey, of course. And it's really refreshing for me to see. And it's something that I wish I saw more of on the independents. us versus them. You talked about how you guys are fighting for a crumb. Exactly. So why don't you make your crumb larger by pooling it all together? And I don't know how people have not figured out something that the NWA figured out in 1948.
So many egos on the indie world, man. Like it's just, but it truly is the way. Like you're not doing anything to help your business by shitting on each other, by trying to stab each other in the back. There are promoters and promotions I don't fucking like. I'll be honest, but I'm
Yeah.
not gonna. You'll never see me, and I'm just old school that way. I don't put business out in fucking public on social media anyway. But you're never gonna see me running down another promoter or running down another show on socials and shit like that. Even with people I don't like it or might have a grudge with, because like that could be handled privately. Like I don't, why give them attention? Why acknowledge it? For one. And two, like you're just not doing anything productive for your business by being antagonistic and trying to be an enemy to everyone. Like if you see enemies everywhere, you're gonna fucking find some. If you try to treat other promotions the way you would hope they would treat you, then a lot of times it turns into a great thing. And at the least you can just not try to fuck each other over. That's like the bare minimum you can do.
Yeah. Come on, man. There's a lot more of that pie, I think, than people think and realize. And I didn't even realize till I really got deep into the indies, which was probably like last year, because of the Dean shows. Actually, for whatever reason, man, that Dean shit hit me in the feels. I think because I grew up on DVD-VR, and it is such a huge part of why I look at wrestling the way I do. And it was really neat to see that, where everyone sort of paused for a little bit on those shows and came together and put on killer shows. And then finding out that, like, you guys were a part of a couple of those in terms of backstage and all that shit. And how cool was that? Because I feel like that had to be kind of like oh shit, we got to make this huge.
It's crazy to think of like the seeds that you plant over the years and what kind of fruit they might bear at times, because I was just always cool to the DVDR guys. They always liked our stuff. Matt Griffin was friends with those dudes, and we had a lot of mutual friends. Like Raven Mack from DVDR was always like he was a friend of mine outside of wrestling. So like I knew a lot of these
Yeah.
guys and was always cool with them anyway. And but hadn't really heard from them in years, other than Dylan, who I worked with at TWE.
Yes.
Um, and so this Dean shit comes along, and the first one is during WrestleMania week, where we're already in Philadelphia, so we get booked on it, and it ends up being Tony Khan's favorite show of the year, and which gets us booked on AEW twice. We
Yeah.
did a show for them in Arizona, where Tank and Jada Newman wrestled Araz and Gringo Loco in a
Yes.
tag, and then we did another one in Philly, and that match didn't make air because it was a giant cluster, unfortunately. But it was probably for everyone's benefit that it didn't.
Bill Schneider said that to me as well, by the way.
I don't know what happened there. Like there was a lot of wires crossed one way or the other. It was like miscommunication, because what I was told and instructed to come fucking promo for was not at all the match that we walked into that day. So I don't know what happened between then and there, but it's okay. They still treated us really good, and enjoyed the time working for them. I said this in another interview, but I truly mean this. Like it would be awesome to get a contract and get paid lots of money to do wrestling, but I don't worry about that anymore. Like that's not why I do this. It would be sick, but I do this for my own creative fulfillment, to leave a mark on the world that's like my art, that when I'm gone will still live on. I do this to create cool new shit with other people and help the younger generation. And Stuff like Blood and Honey, like I kind of want to take wrestling outside the box a little bit. I think Nathan's done a great job with that, and we've schemed kind of based on the success of that and the demographics that like it on like bigger things we could do with that same concept, not in the space of wrestling fucking at all. So, like I do it to scratch that itch and say my piece in the world creatively and not necessarily just because I hope one day to get a big fancy contract.
Yeah, and I feel like honestly that's like the approach to have anyway, right? Like it will get you a contract, and it helps you survive the world without this like crazy stress and worry about it. I feel like that's where people get wrong in wrestling. I mean, God, I feel like where do we go after you say they leave the mark on the world? I think that's a great quote. I did want to get into horror movies in this way, just real quick.
Sure.
Again, we could go into the cookie cutter questions of which favorite horror movie, which okay, we'll ask that, but I want to know deeper than that. I want to know number one least favorite horror movie.
Man, least favorite. That's hard. I'm not really much of a hater. Like,
right.
I will tell you things about a movie I didn't like, but I'll also tell you what I thought worked. But I tell you the movie I hated the most recently, and that was the most recent Universal Monster Wolfman remake. It was fucking terrible. And Wolfman, hang the fuck on.
Oh, here we go. We got him so fucking fired up. He's grabbing props, folks.
Hang the fuck on. I got something over here.
This motherfucker. He's got a literal just.
I have a full bust of the Wolfman, but he fucking fell behind my desk. My cat knocked him off. So I'll show you this action figure instead. The Wolfman is my favorite Universal Monster movie of all time. And so I was really excited about this because I really like the Invisible Man that they did with Elizabeth Moss and all that. That was a really cool take on like, turn into like a domestic violence thing. And like, it was really fucking scary and good. And this Wolfman was just the biggest piece of shit. I hate to shit talk somebody's art because somebody worked hard on that. And I know what it's like to work hard on something and people shit on it. But like, it just wasn't for me, man. Like, what are you doing? Why is it's not? You've taken everything that makes the Wolfman great out of it. So recently, that was my most hated movie.
Well, then we'll be more positive. Favorite horror movie trope?
Man, that's a good question. I like that it's not a fucking honestly, like a hilarious gag and a sex kill.
Yeah.
Like I think Hatchet, is it Hatchet 1 or Hatchet 2 has like the funniest one of those where two people are getting it on and Victor Crowley kills them both. And like the dude, this is going to be a little graphic. So kids plug your.
It's awesome.
So the dude's like hit his girl from behind. And Victor Crowley chops his head off, but like his body is like
still backshot.
Going, and she like, well, of course he doesn't have a fucking head, and then there he is. Like, it's just gross and hilarious, and I have a sick sense of humor like that, so I found it funny.
I love that shit. And then the other one would be any like good memories of watching a horror movie in the theater.
Oh yeah, tons. Fuck. Let me think of a good one. I mean, it's got to be Devil's Rejects. I saw that shit on opening night.
Oh man.
And saw it multiple times in the theater, but that first showing was a packed house. Everybody was on the fucking edge of their seat, and I feel like that. I mean, a lot of people have opinions on Rob Zombie's movies. I tend to enjoy most, if not all of them, to some degree. But I agree. Like, some of them are not like the most well-made movies or whatever, but like that movie is his one movie. I feel like that really stands in like artistic people would say, "Oh, this is a good film." And getting to see that in the theater on opening night with a rabid crowd was fucking sick.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I mean, to me, the only thing left to do is plug away, man. What do you got coming up? You're excited about where people can reach you?
Oh man, we got a lot coming up. How long? When is this going to air?
Okay. So I've got a couple in the can. I'll say 3 weeks. 3 weeks from now.
Okay.
So like
Okay.
third week
So,
in June.
so then that will be the June 27th Blood and Honey coming up.
There you go.
We'll have Tank versus Neji Ichiban and more on that to be announced. But that's going to be a big show. Check that out. We have SCI weekend coming up July 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia on that Sunday, ending it with a Blood and Honey. We have ICW No Holds Barred coming to Chattanooga the week before that. I have a project with Produce Wrestling coming soon. We haven't filmed it yet, but we have started the initial work on it, and it's one of the more fun projects I've ever been offered related to wrestling. So I'm very excited about that. You will see me get to kind of live out some of my horror host fantasies, but as relates to wrestling, so more to come on that, but be on the lookout. And if they have another Dean show later this year that they're doing with Produce, I very likely will be on that because we've been on all the other ones, but I've not gotten confirmation of that. But I'm already doing a project for them, so check that out when it drops. And then socials, my main socials these days is Instagram at Rev Dan Wilson. If it wasn't for kind people like you saying nice things occasionally, I'd probably already have deleted Twitter, and I'm still like wrestle with it every fucking day because that place is such a toxic shithole.
Yeah.
It's just like, doesn't matter what people post, negativity is pushed to the forefront. The greatest wrestler ever thing was fine until people started getting really toxic about it, which I didn't participate, but I was watching some of the arguments and stuff, and some of it was kind of fun. I was like, oh, okay, they're at least talking about wrestling and like matches and wrestlers and shit to watch instead of fucking shitting on somebody or canceling somebody or fucking like it's just negative. Then you got all these fucking racist Nazi motherfuckers fucking coming in the fucking comments just saying awful shit to people who aren't even like doing controversial shit, right? Like, like some wrestler goes, oh, here's a selfie of me on the way to the ring. Fuck you, you stupid bitch. Like what? Like
wild, man.
It's a horrible place. It's a horrible place. So I have tried to limit my usage there recently, and I am on there. So it's Rev Dan Wilson. You can follow me. I do share promotion and post promos and stuff, but I don't get involved in the discussions much anymore. My main social is Instagram at Rev Dan Wilson. That is always you're sharing pictures. It's pretty jovial. There's not a lot of negativity there. So that's where I prefer to stay. I'm also on Facebook, but I basically just share everything from my Instagram there. So I don't really post on there either. I'm trying to cut down social media because that's distraction from creative projects and cool shit I could be doing. Like going to concerts. That's like my favorite thing to do in my free time. And, I can sit and doom scroll and be mad about fucking every shitty thing in the world that I have no control over, or I could turn that shit off and go live my life. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Please, everyone, let's all do it, man. Let's get the fuck off Twitter. So Dan, I mean, it's been a pleasure and an honor, man, talking to you. Hopefully not the last time. But yeah, till next time, everybody go watch more Dan Wilson, go watch more fucking Coven, go watch more fucking indie wrestling. It rules.